It's an interesting case and true hate crime related case that happened just within the last week, around April 17th to be exact. A very important case nonetheless. We call it the case of Dion Marsh. And there's more updates to come fairly shortly, too. So thank you again. Make sure to like, subscribe if you have not, but keep spreading and sharing the videos. Get the word out because together we solve every crime. Thank you. So this has been a little bit strange all the way along, and it'll be a short case, but it really should be examined by the public. And so I continue to reiterate, get this out there far and wide, and keep spreading this case. This is important. New Jersey man Dion Marsh faces federal hate crimes and charges for allegedly attacking Jewish people and striking 3 victims with cars, as well as other religious people. The other shoe dropped for a man previously charged in state court for allegedly attacking and trying to kill Jewish men in New Jersey. Dion Marsh, age 27, now faces federal hate crime charges. Each of the 4 attacks happened within hours of each other on April 8th. Authorities described each of the 4 victims as visibly identifiable. First, at 1:18 p.m., Marsh allegedly attacked a man in the township of Lakewood. He forced the victim out of the man's car and then injured him severely. According to prosecutors, this was just the beginning in this case. At 6:06 p.m., as was mentioned in the other article I read, Marsh was allegedly driving another car in Lakewood, and he struck one of these Jewish men with his car to run them over. The victim survived but sustained many broken bones. Less than an hour later, Marsh was behind the wheel of the aforementioned stolen car. He struck the 3rd victim with his car in Lakewood yet again, continuing to terrorize these people. Finally, at 8:23 p.m., Dion Marsh used the same stolen car in Jackson Township to hit another Jewish man who was walking in Lakewood at the time. Officers eventually arrested Marsh at his home at 12 a.m. on April 9th. All told, investigators say Marsh tried to kill 3 of the men deliberately. He is charged with 4 counts of violating the federal Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Hate Crime Prevention Act, which is rarely ever used, and 1 count of carjacking. Marsh was previously charged in Ocean County with attempted murder and bias intimidation. He had said it's going to be a blood case, so here we go. This is an important case for some reason. Happened within the past few days. There is a potential serial killer, someone who's been convicted of hate crimes, and is leaning in the serial killer direction, who was in New Jersey. Dion Marsh had a clean record before his alleged spree of violence and terror in Lakewood and Jackson earlier this month. Now Marsh, age 27, who showed a sharp change for some reason in demeanor in Ocean County in the teleconference that they conducted, is looking at the possibility of life behind bars. The slew of state and federal charges against Dion Marsh may bring prison sentences of hundreds of years if he is convicted multiple times. One charge alone, which is the state terrorism charge officially for New Jersey, calls for a minimum prison sentence of 30 years without any parole and a maximum of a life term. That charge also virtually assures that Marsh remains incarcerated pending trial. Marsh is charged with carjacking, bias intimidation, attempted kidnapping, as well as hate crimes and attempted murder. Most, if not all, of the victims are identified as being Orthodox Jewish, and of similar background. The prospect of a life in prison due to these charges brings up a harrowing display. During the interrogatories, Marsh underscored his intent to investigators. It had to be done, Dion Marsh said to the investigating team. These are the real devils. Marsh's attorney, Assistant Deputy Public Defender Marissa Diana, said a pretrial assessment found Marsh to be a low risk of both failing to appear in court and continuing the criminal activities he's guilty of. The terrorism charge outweighed these factors, even before other circumstances were discussed. Marsh, speaking from behind his cell door, remained reticent after hurling no shortage of profanities at the judge on prior detention attempts. At the conclusion of the hearing in the New Jersey courtroom, Marsh said he understood the ruling. At the April 13th hearing, Dion Marsh told Ryan at one point, "Yes, I do know my rights. Do you know who the hell I am? Do you know who I am? Well, we now know enough about you, Mr. Marsh, to know that you are highly dangerous and hopefully now locked up." One other thing they said, Dion Marsh repeatedly stated aloud that it was going to be a bloodbath, is what he said. Esler gave the following comment and account of the actions. The near killing spree began at 1:09 on April 8th, when a man allegedly tried to get into another man's car. That man, identified as Dion Marsh, apparently hung onto the car and reached toward the man's juvenile children in the back seat as it traveled a city block before losing the man clinging to the side. At 1:18, a man forced another man out of his car in Lakewood, assaulting and injuring him, then took his gray Toyota Camry and drove away from the scene without saying a word. Hours later, at 5:20 p.m., a victim was seen crossing the street when a dark-colored sedan struck the right side of his body, causing serious injuries. A few minutes later, a man identified as Dion Marsh tried to pull a 17-year-old boy into a car and kidnap him. At 6:06 p.m., another victim was struck by a maroon-colored car that Marsh identified and was seen driving around. At 6:55, an individual was stabbed in the chest with a steak knife and then fled the scene in the car. At 8:23 p.m., a pedestrian was struck in Jackson, New Jersey. The car, which matched the description of a Toyota Camry that had been stolen from the second victim, was disabled on the road. Marsh's estranged girlfriend identified him in surveillance video. At 10:44 p.m., detectives executed a no-knock search warrant at the address for Dion Marsh's license. Marsh was found lying on a bed, holding a machete on his chest, ready to cut. He was taken into custody. So, just another strange case. And I will say the way people lucked out that there wasn't real considerable violence is something to always be grateful for. Anyway, please go ahead and get this out there as well and spread the word on this case. This is a very important case that also took place only within the past week or so. So thank you. A little more here. And we can see here, partly by these issues and problems, I mean, this was the area where some of these crimes took place, and Dion Marsh literally ran people over, is what the words say in the article. He ran them over in this area on Stadium Way over here in the Lakewood Township. And then he went also to the Brick Township and another township to run these people over. So, I mean, did he just unfortunately not like anything about Orthodox Jewish people or religious Protestant people or, so on? Did he just have an axe to grind? I mean, you have to admit this is an unusual case. And of course, the cars in the area here are not marked at all. And then, we see, of course, it just is a place that's covered in very, very dense woods. So, I guess the reason I bring this up, I've been kind of investigating this a bit, is could it be possible that Marsh intended to kill some of these people and these Orthodox victims and then just bury them in the woods? Under the water? I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting prospect, to say the least. And, we can go here, essentially to Lakewood, as close to that area where all this was taking place. And it's just a budget rent-a-car center and things like that. It seems kind of unusual to be a place where you're going to deliberately kill somebody or attempt to murder them. It's quite tragic, quite frightening that this type of thing is going on right now. But given that it was so close to the woods, I suppose it could be possible that he had intended to go after some of these victims all the way along, just like Khalid Weaver, who also lived in this area of New Jersey, and then possibly bury them out here in the pine woods and the pine forest. Anyway, I wanted to make sure, this gets to everyone's attention. There are certainly some key questions in this particular case. He did say it was going to be a bloodbath. My goodness. That's very interesting. According to the Department of Justice, Dion Marsh faces a maximum life in prison for federal hate crime charges or something to that effect. I don't know if they can really charge him federally at all, ultimately, but certainly he's gotten hit with state crime charges, attempted murder. In fact, one of them, I think he did actually kill them, because one of them sustained broken bones, but another one, they claim that they never found anything on the guy. So it's quite tragic, and I chalk it up to a little too much road rage out there. So thank you once again. Speaking of road rage, we don't want anybody to text and drive. So please, keep getting this case out. Get it to the general public. And let's get more and more eyes on this kind of case. And it would be good to hear your feedback as well on this. Thank you. So serial killer cases, particularly in New Jersey, are now a dime a dozen. They're very, very common. But this one was particularly interesting, both in the demeanor that Marsh exhibited, as well as some of the motives that have later now been proven and compounded in the actual court case at trial. And it makes me step back for just a moment and ponder very carefully the Orsolia Gall murder, because now, as you know, it's been linked to some interesting things. And I have apparently, at least tangentially, been able to link it now directly to none other than Bill Clinton. And so, it makes one wonder, is there more to these cases than meets the eye? And if there is, We need to get to the bottom of it. So once again, I appreciate all of you, but make sure to spread the word on these, especially on this case, and get it out there far and wide. Let's get it to the general public as well, so they can weigh in. Thank you. Right here, JTC channel. We solve crime.